How's it going, everybody? It's Tyler here with the Western Wing Shooter Podcast. I got my trusty sidekick, Mr. Wess Larabee. Over in the other studios, we got Tim Brown, the bearded uplander. We got George McNamara, the old Coach Mac and Stash himself. Tonight, we are going to do a Pheasant Hunting 101 podcast. Everybody seemed to really enjoy the Sharp Tails and the Huns one. This is going to be mostly North Dakota, but then Tim's here for the Iowa portion because the pheasant hunting down there is just a little bit different. We're going to run through everything that there is to do with pheasant hunting. But first, I got some announcements I got to make. First of all, I got to thank all you Patreon patrons that have been signing up to the Prairie Tales podcast page and also to my page here in the last couple of weeks. We're very much looking forward to seeing all you guys down at Pheasant Fest. I'm going to have some new t-shirts. It looks like George and Wes got Prairie Tale podcast t-shirts. George, hold up the stickers.
Oh, gotta get it out.
Goodness sakes.
Just gotta get it out. Same thing.
He's got some new stickers. They just got them today. We're gonna have a bunch of stuff down there. Tim's got all kinds of stuff going on. He's gonna be kicking around as well. But if you guys don't already know, so listen up. Quail Forever is turning 20, and Onyx is throwing a hell of a party to celebrate. It's called the Reign of the Quail. And if you're a Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, this is where you want to be. Friday night, March 7th, 9 p.m., Kansas City Convention Center, Hall 1501. Disco chickens get all the attention, but let's be real. You know how much I love quail hunting. They're the real OG. That's exactly why Onyx is throwing Reign of the Quail. It's time to give these little birds the big party that they deserve. We have free beer. Free beer. Everybody loves free beer. Live music from Big Time Grain Company and the whole crew of bird hunters who appreciate a proper cubby rise. No tickets, no RSVP, just show up, grab a beer, listen to some live music. So if you're ready to celebrate the best bird in the uplands and have a hell of a good time doing it, you know where to be. Reign of the Quail, Friday night at 9 o'clock. Do not miss it. That is a message from Onyx Hunt. Who doesn't like free beer and music? I like free beer.
And last year they blew it out of the water. They blew it out of the water last year.
It's Leinenkugels this year.
Oh, well,
so this year is going to be even better than last year. I'll bet you it is.
I mean, last year was 100% first class. Everything they did, it was above and beyond any expectations I had. I'm sure
it was a hell of a party. I was glad that I had George to be my DD.
We do again this year.
We do again this year. He might have his one white Russian and be out there on the dance floor kicking it up.
I'm worried. Oh, if I do, there's no telling that titanium hip. I could have a meltdown right there on the dance floor.
Start building up the heat in that thing, and all of a sudden you'll burn a hole right in the dance floor.
If I can get the timing down of my time release vitamins, there's no telling what could happen.
That's right. The
old bionic man.
That's right. We do have a couple other announcements that we want to go through here real quick. I had a conversation with Brandon from Boss Ammo here the other day. We're going to try to get him on a podcast one of these first days. They're really getting pinched by the tariffs over in China. Bismuth is going to be one of the things that is going to be really tough to come by. So is what Brandon's doing. I talked to him. I think he said they have 3 loads of bismuth that are already here that they paid for at the old price. And then after that, the price is going to go up pretty significantly. So anybody that signed up for the email that is a member, you can pre-order whatever shells you want for the season, and they at the old price, and they'll ship them out to you as soon as they're made. Once that's done, he said, when he was talking to me, he said it's probably going to be about 4 or 5 months worth of bismuth, but that takes us right up to season. So once that season gets here, it's going to be a little bit harder to get some of those shells, like George shoots those little purple shells, those 16 gauge, the 410s and 28s are going to be a little bit tougher to get. 20s and 12s should be pretty good, but you guys are going to want to get signed up for that. And go ahead.
Your pre-orders will be open until March 17th or until the material inventory levels force us into a price increase.
Yeah.
Of 40%.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. So, and knowing Brandon, when I talk to him, he's losing sleep over this. I mean, it's not something that he wants to do. And as soon as those tariffs come off and that price comes back down, hopefully it won't even drag into hunting season. But there's no guarantees. Serious guys, go out and order right now because there's, like he said, it's going to be a 40% increase. It's going to be a lot. There's a lot of that's huge.
That's huge. That's a better money investment than following Nancy Pelosi stocks, if that tells you anything.
Yeah. Well done, George.
That was good.
George is on fire tonight. He did
take
his vitamins.
I know he did.
Yeah.
A brand new bag of Gundog Grind, and it's when it's fresh out of the bag like that.
That's right. Oh, it doesn't get any better than that. But make sure you guys go over there and get all your orders in for the year right now. It's going to save you a lot of money if you do it today, tomorrow, anytime up to March 17th or whenever they actually run out all their stuff. Me and George and Wes are already getting all of our stuff kind of put together so that way they know what we need for the season. It's going to be a bit of a crunch, but Boss is one hell of a company, all American made. They're some of the best dudes in the outdoors. And as soon as they can lower that price again, they absolutely will.
Yeah.
So George mentioned Gundog Grind. We're going to be set up in the booth right next to them. There's going to be coffee going all day long, which is going to be very handy because there's going to be a lot of...
George will need it for all the...
I'm going to need it. There's going to be not a lot of sleep going on and a lot of other stuff happening. I'm going to run through some of the places that I'm going to be. Friday, I'm going to be at the Onyx booth from 12 to 2. They're doing something called e-scouting with experts or something like that. I'm not an expert, but I'm going to help you guys any way that I can. And then on Friday night, there's something called Quail Battleship that I'm a part of from 4:30 to 6. Honest to God, I'm not even 100% sure what that is, but I like Battleship and I like quail, so it's going to be fun. And then after that, we have the Flush Live podcast. If you listen to the Flush podcast, Travis has got all the details up there on his page. I'm not sure the name of the brewery or what time it starts, but it's going to be after 6 o'clock because that's when the show closes. I will be there for that. On Saturday, I will be in the Onyx booth from 11 till 12:30. And then Quail Coast to Coast from 12:30 to 2. And then something called the Podcasters. It's going to be Ryan Callahan, me, Travis Frank, Reed Bryant, I think, Mike Nadeski, and Nick Larson, I believe. And that's from 3:30 to 5. On Sunday, Onyx from 1 to 3, 12 to 1 on the public land stage for the Quail Coast to Coast. So I'm going to be around. Then we're also going to try to do podcasts with you listeners as you guys come by the booth in the morning. Looks like every day I'm free before 11. So
opens at 11.
It opens at 9.
You're gonna get up at 10:30.
Right.
We do have some day passes too. So
yeah, and we will have some day passes as well. So if you guys are a Patreon patron or if you guys are going to be around, especially if you guys have kids, make sure you send us a message on Instagram or send us an email, and we will have some day passes to give away as well. So with all that said, we're going to be right across the aisle from Onyx and Gundog, or Onyx and Final Rise. Gundog Grind's going to be right next to us. We're going to be right there at the cool kids table. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Where are you at, Tim?
I actually got moved to, what is it? 2012. So I'm right next to Chief Upland, right on a corner booth. So
okay. 2012 was a good year. I remember that.
Yeah, it was a good year. And I'll like Tyler said, I'll be in certain places that I don't know what times yet, but
right.
It'll be all over the place.
I got a whole spreadsheet going on. I was talking to Travis the other day, and between the two of us, we're going to spend less time in our booth than we're going to spend in other people's booths. So we're going to be bouncing around, which is, fine because like Wes said, I don't have that much patience. So me out there mingling among the people is always for the best.
I got put on a little bit of a clock by the girls that are going to be running my booth. Like, your ass is going to be here for at least a little bit. I'm like, well, yeah. But there's people that they want to see Mac. I mean, that's really honestly the only, they just want to see my dog. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, last year, I was so thankful that I had George there last year because on Saturday I was stuck in the booth all day, and the only time I was able to get away was just to go pee. So, and I pretty much had to bulldoze my way through there. Otherwise, I was going to leave a puddle on the floor there in the convention hall in Sioux Falls. But it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm going to be. It's always really good to catch up with everybody. It's going to be me and Wes and George, and Tim's going to be there. Our buddies Bruce and Terry, Kirk Adams, Nate Burbach, our buddy from here in North Dakota, is flying down. Brent and Tammy Kroll from Michigan are coming out. Our buddy Brad Armstrong's coming down. It's gonna we're gonna have a heck of a crew. It's gonna be a ton of fun. All right, So with all that said, today is the pheasant hunting. We're calling it Pheasant Hunting 101, but it's actually more like a master class with the four of us, well, three of us and George, that are going to kind of break down everything that goes on from inception all the way through the season, what we're looking for as far as a good winter, a good nesting season, that early successional growth, that stuff we're going to be looking for in the early portions of the year compared to mid-season and late season. The differences between North Dakota and Iowa. We're going to get into all of it. So with all that here, I wanted to show you guys just a little taste of what some of the hunting that we get to do up here. And it's going to kind of run the gamut from early season to late season. Enjoy. "16 feet. This is that early season time frame. He's right here. That's a bow. Rooster. That's a rooster. Shot.
Dead bird Bruce.
Dead bird Bruce. Old 2-pot Potter. Boy, Bogues.
That's the best, going through those feathers like that, too.
I love that. Got him. Yes, I do got him, Alex. Thank you very much. Boy, Rust. I love it when they get stuck in a bush like that and just lay up there for you. Stuck in that bush for me. So that was awful nice of him. All right, so is what we're going to talk about today is exactly all that you guys just seen. So we're going to start with the difference between our nesting season here and our hatch here compared to you, Tim. Our nest. So okay.
Hold on a second before you do this. I got a question for you from that last episode you guys did with Sharptails.
Sure.
The one thing that was bugging me was, how do we know what the heck is that? How do we know that blue green algae? When is it safe for the dogs? When does that stuff go away to where you don't have to worry about it? Because I had 2 people send me a message and I'm like, I don't have a clue.
Sure. So it's never safe for the dogs, but it's a living thing. So it dies after a couple of freezes. Once you start getting a little bit of skim ice on the edges of the slough, that late October time frame, but it'll start dying off as you start getting those colder nights. But it's never safe for the dogs. And
so if you see a piece of that water, mark it and don't ever go near it, because it's always going to have it, right?
It's not every year. No, it's not every year.
No, because it depends on the water that comes in through the year.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's stagnant water, you're more apt to have blue-green algae.
Yeah. Sure. And there's also some of the stuff that, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. And just like with what you guys have going on over there in Iowa as well, you get that runoff from anhydrous ammonia and all that kind of stuff that goes in there. And if it gets to that water source at the right time, it's stagnant, it's dry, that water really heats up and you'll have that bloom. The biggest piece of advice that I can give is always approach water on the upwind side, because like I said, this stuff's living and it'll blow that blue-green stuff off to the downwind side. Right. And so if you approach it on the upwind side, it's very, very rare that you're going to see any of the actual blue stuff that's on top of the water. And the dogs will be okay.
It gets all foamy.
It gets frothy. Yep.
And they say it has, after the first really hard freeze, overnight freeze.
Yeah, like 20s.
It's safe.
Yeah.
I personally never let my dogs ever go in that pond until the next year when I come back by it. I check it again.
Sure.
If it looks clean, then
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that should answer the questions, because I didn't know and I was curious myself.
It's definitely something that people need to be cognizant of. It's not in every pond. It's probably in 2% or even 1% of all the potholes out here, but it's something that people need to be aware of. And you just everybody, when you're out there hunting in September and you got a hot dog, you really need to be able to read your dog and know what the difference between a hot dog and one that's overheating. Like an overheating dog is you need to stop. You just need to stop, let the dog cool off, whatever. But people will start kind of panicking a little bit, and they're going to try to get that dog to water. And that dog will see water and it's hot and it wants to go and lay down or get a drink or whatever. And it can get you into some trouble. Yep. Like I never let my dogs run over top of a hill and just into water without me knowing what that water is before they get there. But like I said, it's pretty rare. It's not everywhere, but when you do see it, it's, and it'll kill a dog in about 15 minutes. I mean, and there's nothing you can really
do. Nothing you can do about it.
You can carry some hydrogen peroxide. You can get them to vomit it up, and
that don't always work because they go into liver failure.
Kidney failure too.
Isn't it more of a respiratory issue than a
no? It's not.
Okay,
it shuts down the vital organs.
Yeah, it's nasty.
It's like
steer clear.
But what's weird is cattle can drink it and horses can drink it and never have a problem. Deer can drink it.
Right.
A dog drinks it and it kills them instantly.
Huh.
Well,
within a half hour to an hour.
If you look at a lot of the stuff that people put in smoothies, blue-green algae is in there. Like it's something that's actually healthy for people as well. But yeah, it'll
green algae can fool you sometimes on the right day.
Yeah.
With a really big green algae bloom. When it gets frothy and blows up against the bank, it looks a lot like blue-green algae.
Yeah, but the blue-green algae is neon.
Blue. Yeah,
I mean neon colored.
Like blue. Like our colors in the bottom of our little things there.
Sure. Yeah. What were you going to say, George?
When we were fishing, was that green algae?
Yes. That was just an algae bloom.
That's just green algae.
Yeah. Which was nasty, and it very likely will give your dog the shits. But it's not going to kill him. So it's but yeah, it's a whole different thing. Yeah. The waterfowl production area just west of my house here, that gets blue-green algae. It typically grows in very shallow, stagnant water that gets ultra hot. And it's worse if we have an abnormally warm September. If we have those Septembers where the highs are in the low 80s and the lows are in the 50s, that's when it can be really bad. And that's our sharptail season. And that's when we're out there on those big walks and we're looking for water and everything else. So I'm ultra cautious about that.
Yeah, I'd avoid hunting around water, to be quite honest. It's not freaking worth it to me.
Well, my favorite spot has a lot of little lowland, little wet spots in it most years. And I'm very cognizant I mark them on the map. So whenever we get close, I can ring in the dog and check them out before we get there.
Yep.
But it is weird how one year there will be none in any of it. And then the next year there's 3 or 4 pieces that have it. And the next year, them 3 or 4 pieces have moved to 3 or 4 different ones, and those don't have any in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
so weird. It's weird stuff. It really is. But
and they say waterfowl can move it around on their body.
Sure.
But it has to grow with the decay of the plant, I believe, and that's what causes the bloom to happen. When other vegetation starts to die off, it flourishes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
it's one of those things that everybody, when they hear how bad it is, how deadly it is for dogs, they tend to freak out. Which it's so uncommon. Like as long as you just keep control of your dog and like live on your onyx when you're out there on those big walks.
Yep.
Always be looking for where that next pond is at, and like I said, 9 times out of 10 they're going to be fine. You can get the dog in there. A lot of times that water's a lot cooler that time because you get those nice low nighttime temperatures, and you can throw a stick out there, let the dog go out, have a big drink of water, have a swim about, cool off, all that kind of stuff. But whenever I'm walking up to one, dog's on heel, my hands on the button, I'm making sure that dog's there until I have give it a good look over. Yep. And then, after that, it's fine. But it's just one of those things that people need to be aware of.
Yep.
But don't overreact. Like it's not in every piece of water. You'll be fine.
And a lot of people you will never have blue-green algae in a stock tank. I mean a stock tank by like either a rubber tire or a metal tank that livestock drinks out of.
Yeah.
Actual dirt stock tanks, a little dam can have it, but a actual stock tank, even if they shut it off back in July or June and it still has water in it, that water is still very capable to let your dog have.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
I don't like. I'm very picky about which water I let my dogs in, anyways, because they sleep in bed with me, and I don't want them to smell bad. So
100%. Yeah.
But like if you're out on a big walk and you are having trouble, I always mark my stock tanks.
Yeah.
On my Onyx, so I know how far away I am at any point from a stock tank if I need to get there. If my live water has blue-green algae and that's the only place I got to go, we're going there and he's getting in it.
Sure. All right. So we're gonna run over some. I've been getting, since we did that last podcast about the sharptails and Huns, I've been getting a ton of messages. Really excited about this pheasant one. And everybody's been commenting on the videos that I've been taking when I've been out working of all the pheasants out in the fields. Winter, like these cold temps that we're having right now, it's a historically cold winter up here. We just broke 140-year record for the record low, like last night.
Night before.
Yeah, it got down to 39 below air temperature. That doesn't affect pheasants. The cold does not affect pheasants, not one bit. Is what affects the pheasants is freezing rain in the wintertime. It puts a really nasty hard crust on top of that snow and they can't scratch through it to get to food. A really cold or a really wet, like springtime or late or early winter blizzard will do it. Pheasants are
notorious for getting blown under.
And they, if you get that wet snow, they'll get underneath there and they'll hunker down and that stuff will freeze over top of them and then they can't get back out.
Yep.
The other thing that they will do is, God, pheasants are dumb.
They face into the wind and it blows their nostrils full and ices over and they suffocate.
Yeah, they're like cattle. I mean, sharp tails. You think
their ass to the wind.
Nah, not always. Not in this neck of the woods. They don't. They get behind something and they turn their nose.
If they're in a shelter belt, yeah.
And but I mean, that's how I always when I learned it. It was cattle and pheasants are the same, and buffalo and sharp tails are the same.
Yeah. That's what it is. That's a pretty good way to put it. So the winters. Like this winter is going to be fine for the birds. We have very little snow on the ground. We've had very, very cold temperatures, but there's still tons of thermal cover out there and there's a ton of food. No problems. The birds are going to come out of winter very well. Now is what is important for all upland game birds is that early rain, that late April to mid-May timeframe, even mid-April to mid-May, that month there, just to start getting the grass growing. For that nesting cover, it's not as crucial as a dry June. Like dry June is super important. So just like we talked about with the sharptails and the Huns,
moisture, just not at cool temps,
right?
You know, and not giant rains. You know,
right.
A small showers is great.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You just don't want that long sustained periods of cold, wet weather. And when I say cold, in June, if you're going to have daytime highs of less than like 60 degrees, which is pretty uncommon, those young birds can't survive that. If the daytime highs are going to be 60 degrees, lows are going to be in the 40s. You add that in with wet weather, they can't thermoregulate yet. They're going to get hypothermic. They're going to die. So just like with the sharptails and the Huns, the pheasants will continue to keep on re-nesting until they actually have a successful, like a bird survives from their nest. But just like with sharptails and Huns, they start getting smaller and smaller. An average size of pheasant, average clutch of pheasant eggs, hen can lay anywhere from 8 to 12 is pretty standard. They can go a little bit more than that. They, if you, like I was saying in the Sharptail podcast, that brood survey at the end of August, early part of September, if you're seeing average brood size of pheasants in that 7 to 9, it was a good hatch. Like that's really that's positive.
Yep.
Anything less than that, it was subpar. Anything less than 5, not good.
Nope.
Tim, okay. The last thing I want to say on the North Dakota side, and then I'm going to pitch it to you, Tim. Our pheasant hatch, the peak of our hatch here is about the 9th or 10th of June. They'll start hatching in late May, and you'll still see some of that first nesting, which is always going to be the most successful, hatching all the way out until probably about the 15th of June. After that, it's going to be a renest situation, which you can absolutely tell that first weekend of season if you're getting a lot of birds up that barely have any colors and all you can see is just the red parts around the rooster's eyes. That was a late hatch. Tim, what's the X factor for you guys down there in Iowa?
It's pretty much the same thing. They down here, we don't ever get like those really big swings like you guys have the opportunity to up there. I mean, like this year, you know, I talked to you, Tyler, about it this spring. Like when we had that flood go through, I was extremely worried.
Yep.
And you know, and on some of the river bottom ground, yeah, everything was gone. I mean, they were just wiped out. There was nothing there. The only good thing is when the hens go to renest, the water was there long enough that there was no hope for that cover. So they moved up the hill and found good cover. So their renest worked out really well. It's the same thing though. That survey in August is the key factor to look for. And it's the same time frame. I mean, there's birds that I've seen on nests in April, end of April. And that'll go all the way through to June. But like you said, that the month of June is the most important month of anything. I mean, that's going to make or break your bird season.
For sure.
Down here, anywhere from like we start putting our food plots in like the week before Memorial Day, just to make sure that, you know, when they have them little ones, there's enough cover there that they can get into that, you know, that one sorghum plot that we hunted. You know, all that stuff's done before we leave to go fishing up and on Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
Which is a little early for, you know, planting sorghum.
Right.
It's a little early, but we would rather do it then than go in there and have to spray and, you know, kill off the cover. And maybe there's some little ones in there or she nested in it. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Yeah. So we just, you know, would rather err on that side of caution. But the roadside survey counts too. I do my own. I've done my own for the last 8 years, and it's just my 20-mile route that I do. And that gives me a huge gauge. I count everything. I literally count clutch sizes. I count if there's mixed clutches, which down here, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but sometimes there's one hen that will have, I mean, she'll be watching like 5 clutches.
Right.
I mean, she'll get up and there'll be 30, 40 birds with her, but they're all, you know, there's usually 3 or 4 different sizes. I don't know
sizes.
Yeah, and she's just like, I don't know if she's just babysitter at that time or
they're
what.
Just like gander, like yep. They're just like geese. You'll see like on the waterfowl production area here just west of the house in the springtime, there'll be 50 pairs of Canada geese down there that'll all lay eggs, and you'll see one pair with 25 little ones trailing behind her, and then everybody else will have like 1s and 2s. Like I don't know what it is. It's like that they just attract towards the one, you know?
Yeah. And I don't know if it's kind of like how chickens, how they brood and stuff like that, to where maybe she's just like the boss and she's just, I'm going to watch everybody kind of thing, you know, while everybody else is out eating or something. I don't know.
Sure.
But before we get fun.
Yeah, she might be. She's that fun aunt. Before we get too far into this, I want to discourage all of you pheasant nerds out there from sending us messages to correct anything that we say that might be wrong. This is what me and Tim have seen. Yeah. We're not biologists. We're not professionals at this. I do like I'm a bit of a bird nerd, so I end up getting into a lot of the numbers. If I said anything that was slightly wrong, please no need to message me. That's fine.
Same here. I mean, I'm kind of like a stats guy on my counts though. I want every factor. I write down temperature, I write down dew point, I write down everything so I can see, you know, what's the deciding factor. And you know, honestly, from what I see of them birds, they're not really even going out there to get grit. They're just going out to dry off on our roads.
Yep. Here too.
Because it is so wet. It is so wet down here in the, you know what it is in August in cornfields. I mean, it's all the dew points at 99%, you know?
Right. And that's one of the big factors here too. On one of the things that can absolutely affect our counts is if it's abnormally dry in August. If we don't have any moisture in the grass, you don't see the birds on the roads.
Yep. 100%.
We went through that a couple years ago up here where everybody was kind of freaking out because we had a bad roadside survey. Yep. And I was like, I ain't worried about that at all. I know there's plenty of birds out there, but they just weren't coming out of the grass because the grass wasn't wet. And, you know, like that part of their life, they're eating 90% soft-bodied insects. The soft-bodied insects live inside the grass. If they don't have to get out to dry out in the morning, they're not gonna.
No, same with cornfields too. I mean, it's the same thing. They don't have to get out of that corn. I mean, the corn, honestly, during our summer, that cornfield is the best cover that we have.
Yeah.
them birds have no avian predators that are going to get them.
Right.
There's plenty of birds or plenty of bugs on the edges. I mean, I think, but the only thing is when we do have that bad winter, our birds are more susceptible to getting completely wiped out because there's just nothing for them to stay in. That's what happened in Eastern. That's what happened in Eastern Iowa, where I'm from. I mean, there's literally nothing left.
Right. Yeah, and that's why our pheasant population in particular, we don't have those super violent swings here, because there is a lot of those little set aside areas, whether it would be the little bit of CRP we still have, any of those low lying areas, any of the cattail sloughs, tree rows, fence rows, all that kind of stuff that doesn't really get plowed under. Some farmers will give it a valiant effort every once in a while, and it drives me crazy. But, there's still plenty of places for them, and all that stuff is, sure, it's not, I mean, it's going to have some effect on them during the spring and in the summer, but it's that thermal cover that they need for nasty winters like this. If they have any place that they can get in and stay warm, they'll be fine. But if you guys get a bad blizzard down there, you guys are kind of dancing with the devil a little bit, where it's like, oh well, you take what you get. But
they're going to be, I mean, they're always going to be in the key, the key where the habitat is. There's going to be birds there. There's always going to be birds.
Right.
There.
Right.
And always remember too that, if your hen comes into nesting season and breeding season in good shape,
they produce more eggs.
They produce more eggs.
Absolutely.
Yep. Exactly right. Good point. Thanks for mentioning that. I was going to mention that earlier and I totally spaced.
So honestly, shoot as many roosters as you can, because it
doesn't hurt the population one bit.
Roosters run the hens off the feed.
Yep, they're assholes.
You'll see it every day going to town. The roosters running the hens off the scratch to get to the feed. It's like, you little buggers.
Yeah, we didn't do quite a good enough job last year around here.
Not even close to near enough.
There's if I drive
everywhere.
Yeah, it's unbelievable up here right now. I mean, I ran mail today, and I'm not kidding. This wasn't the good mail route up there in that northwest part of the state. This is the one right here around my house, and I guarantee I've seen 500-600 pheasants today. I mean, one field had 250 in it for sure. Just right here around the house, I seen 50 just driving by when I was on the mail route today. Over there on our little spot off the highway, there was another 100, and then there was plus 75 sharptails and 5 coveys of hunts. Yeah, it's wild up here right now. So
get my bed ready. I'll be up for October.
And
I've seen the biggest flock of sharptails I've ever seen up here. There's probably 300 in it today.
Yeah, they were flying off
coming out of the pasture into the feed and the stubble to feed.
Yep.
I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
One of my good spots, George.
Wes came back and he was so pumped up. I thought he was going to have himself a little moment right there in the living room.
I was pretty excited.
Went from 6 to midnight real quick.
I did.
Yeah, I have not seen that many birds this year in a group.
Yeah. All right. So getting into the actual hunting of this, because we're already a half hour into this episode and we have yet to talk about hunting. So just like with the sharptails and the huns, the tactics that go along with pheasant hunting and the habitat that they're going to be using vary greatly from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. Our season here in North Dakota always starts the second Saturday in October. Doesn't matter what the date is. It can't be past the 14th. So if it okay, I'm going to get into a little politics here, just our local politics. A couple years ago, it was my whole life, it was always the second Saturday in October. The second Saturday in October this particular year fell on the 14th. The first is on a Saturday, anyways, it fell on a 14th. On the 12th, we got a blizzard. Not a bad blizzard, 12, 14, 15 inches of snow. All the outfitters down in the southwest part of the state, which is the only place in North Dakota that has pheasant outfitters like they do in South Dakota, they lost all their business for October because all these, businessmen that want to come and walk these little strips of whatever and have their nice little gentlemanly hunt on the opening weekend of season. They didn't want to come up here and actually put in the work in the snow. They got a hold of the legislators and said and mandated that now pheasant season can open past the 12th. So if it would be on the 14th again, they would actually move it up a week. Anyways, little inside baseball
about that
for you.
Weekend, Tim, is we walked out of this house and had a limit in our loop here.
We did,
and there was 7 of us.
Yeah, we shot 21 roosters and like 18 huns in like a 4.5 mile walk around the farm. It was great.
It was nuts.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like if I see snow in the forecast on opening weekend of pheasant season, I do a little happy dance.
Oh my God.
It was unbelievable.
Like you put young, immature, inexperienced birds in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's bloodbath.
Yeah.
Bloodbath.
And that's what it was. That's what it was for us. Not this last year, but the year before. It snowed on opening weekend and we smacked 15-man limit before 11. I mean, it's just dumb.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. All right. So early season presents its own, like it has its pluses and its minuses. For me, like I talked about in the last podcast, and I know Wes feels the same and George feels probably the same, and I'm sure Tim feels the same too. For me, pheasant season doesn't start until after cold temps and snow. Like if we can get any kind of a cold snap, and it doesn't have to be that cold. It can be 35 during the day and 20 at night. You get that cold snap and it starts congesting these birds into that thicker cover. They're going to run less, they're going to hold better, and they're going to congregate. That early part of the year, the upsides, you have inexperienced birds that are pretty dumb, don't want to fly all that bad. They want to either run or hold. But the thing that you have working against you is that they can be absolutely anywhere on the damn landscape. So you're going to have a lot more walking to end up getting your same number of birds.
Okay, so let's do it like we did last time. What do you look for?
Sure.
Early season pheasant habitat.
So
what does it look like?
Absolutely. So it's evolved a little bit over time for me. Now, when I'm out hunting in September for sharptails and huns, I'm taking note of those places that I'm getting up a bunch of pheasants.
Yep.
Like if I'm out if we're walking a little ravine going through a wheat field or something like that, and all of a sudden we get into a pile of pheasants, that might be my opening day spot. It doesn't you're not going to see those numbers of pheasants like you will late in the year, where all of a sudden you're going to get up 200-300 pheasants out of one piece of cover. But 40 is a really good number.
8 can be a real good number.
Sure, it can be. Out of a smaller area.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I mean.
But the thing that I've started doing is well, let's see. We're 37 minutes in. Anybody that's actually listening, you deserve this tip. I'm hunting the damn lake. I'm hunting all the way from the Garrison Dam in central North Dakota, all the way up damn near to Williston, and I'm hunting the shoreline of the lake. And I'm doing that because it's condensed cover that runs along the edge of the lake, the whole lake. You got weeds, you got cover, you got cottonwood trees, you got bushes. And that's what I do now. And all that stuff butts up to eggland. So I'm hunting the areas that are going to likely be those spots that those birds were going to be nesting. I'm hunting that nesting cover is really what I'm going to be focusing on. Anything that looks like a spot that a bird would have been laying eggs, that's what I'm going to be doing. It's going to be more grass, thick tree rows, bushes, draws with, buckbrush or whatever that's surrounded by ag. That's what I'm going to focus on that early part of the year. Tree rows, though, like we mentioned with huns, tree rows can be huge. They can be absolutely filthy with birds from time to time.
If you want to simple it down a little bit, this is how I would put it. I personally look for tall grass in a woody habitat with a natural barrier.
Yep.
That natural barrier can be, like for Tyler, the lakeshore edge.
Right.
A field edge, a hard line like a tree row. Them are all natural barriers.
Right. Where
you have to have something there to stop them from running.
Right. Yep. And early, that's very
open fields and stubble fields.
Absolutely.
Work great.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's very well said. Anything that you can push those birds towards something that they can't run across, because that early part of the year, especially up here, I'm sure it's the same way down there with you, Tim. They are a run first, sit second, fly third. Like that. That's the way that they're going to look at things. Okay. Before I continue to talk, Tim, what's it like? When does your season open down there? And what's your go-to type stuff to hunt the first part of the season?
So the first part of the season, our starts always is the last Saturday of the month of October. It'll always be the last full weekend of October. So It's never going to be on Halloween, but it could be on the 30th, but then it could be on the whatever, it'd be like the 23rd or 4th or something like that. Anyway,
so you guys open a week after South Dakota?
Yes. Yep. It's always that last full weekend of October.
Okay.
And early season, what I'm looking for is, I mean, it's pretty much the birds that I hunt that I know of. If you can get anything along that cornfield, they don't necessarily want to be anywhere around a bean field at this time of year that I've come across. They will be because they don't have a choice. But if you can key on a nice creek line or a nice piece of CRP that's by cornfield that's been picked, I mean, you might not have a choice, but I mean, if it's been picked, the cornfield's the best. And up here, like you said, you got to have something to stop it. You guys were here. It's a road. I mean, it's going to be a road.
Yep.
It's always going to be a road, or the end of like when we hunted them terraces. I mean, the terraces are always going to be a really good spot that we don't key on enough in our group. We should, but early season, and that's where in our neck of the woods, that's where you're going to find the Huns too. I mean, that's where they're going to live, is in that cornfield and on them terraces. That's what I key on. I try not to hunt anywhere around bean fields unless it's absolutely necessary, but it's the same thing. It's anything thicker than just the regular cornfield. And I mean, if they cut the corn or tall, the stubble, you can literally hunt those early season too. And early season for us, like that video that I posted the other day where everybody was giving me a bunch of crap about talking too much. Early season, it don't mean shit.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't up here either.
Those birds got up in front of me and they lit back down 50 yards. We went up there and smacked a 3-man limit because, like you said, you got to have something at the end, and on our end is mark. so it works out really good for us.
Everybody needs a mark.
Yeah, everybody needs a mark. So that's pretty much early season what we have going on.
George, what have you been noticing since you've because the first time you came up here and hunted with me, and you're going to need to lean forward here. The first time you came up here and hunted with me, it was late in the year. Oh God, not that close. We don't want to see that close up. It was late in the year. It was cold. There was snow on the ground. And so you it seemed like that first time you came up, we had a great hunt. We ended up getting a ton of birds. But when you came up and started spending a little bit more time up here in September in that earlier part of the season, you were kind of spending a little bit too much time looking in that stuff that we're going to talk about here in a little bit for the later season stuff, and a little bit less time in the stuff that I would have been hunting. What have you learned over the last few years since you've been spending more and more time up here?
Well, the early season, you're hunting for them. It's like just like you guys said, they could be just about anywhere. The one thing I have learned about the early season is just because you go through a place that you think there are birds and you go through and there's nothing there, 3 hours later, it could be full of birds. They're moving a lot in the early season. And you see that it's evident. You see them running across roads. You see them flying out of fields and cover. They're just like the other species we talked about, the Huns and the Sharptails. Early season, they're feeding and moving. They're going from place to place. The late season, it's much easier to hunt. You pick your objectives. The birds are in there. They're congregated. They're very dense. But then again, they're a lot jumpier too. They don't seem to hold as well as the early season birds do. And a lot of times the dog work is just kind of, we're not going to. It's become second most important thing out there. The first most important thing seems to be shooting them out of the air, where you let a little bit of that dog work slide just because they're not going to cooperate.
Yeah. Later in the year, we'll definitely dig into that a little bit more in depth here in a few minutes. But like you guys seen in that video that we played at the beginning, that one video where Bo was standing on point 15 feet away from me and I couldn't see him, and then you walk up and all of a sudden you can see the tail sticking up, and then the rooster takes off. That's the kind of stuff that I'm going to be focused on. And because I'm a bit of some people would call me a masochist, some people would call me other things. I'm not going to pass up an area. Like, the problem with hunting the stuff that I hunt early season, that lakeshore stuff, there are no hard edges other than the water. So what we'll do is we'll kind of
push covers to make them go where we want.
Right. So say this is the lakeshore, right? We'll walk this way, and then we'll come back and we'll walk along the edge, because a lot of these birds that are over on this side are going to run towards that water, and then you can pinch them a little bit.
Yep.
So it's, that particular bird was just out in the middle, decided it wanted to sit tight, and Bo said, not on my watch, son. I got your ass. And then it turned out that Bruce actually got his ass, but that's, neither here nor there.
There's another thing, like you guys were talking about water. Early season too, if we're going through a drought here, if there's any creek lines that are running with water, I'm keying on that first.
Sure.
Because that's where most of most of our insects are going to be, and that's where most of them birds are going to be early. Like there was one year that the food plot place we had, that was dry. There was no water in there, and there wasn't a ton of birds there until later. So early season, if it's a drought in Iowa anyway, or I would think Southwest Minnesota is the same way, key on anything that has moving water in it, because that's going to be, you're going to have more concentration of birds there.
And I've noticed it up here a lot, it's the woody cover. And I think a lot of that is because that's shade throughout the summer, they can move in there, and it's just weird. My whole life, I grew up in Southeast South Dakota, an hour from where you live, Tim.
Yeah.
We shot pheasants in shelter belts, and anywhere there was trees, that's where we hunted birds. It's the same here. It's just a different kind of tree. It's just plum thickets and buckbrush, chokecherry thickets. If there's an intermix of kind of a very good diversity of thicket types, it's even 10 times better.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And those, I don't know what you guys call them, in that food plot place. It's that real tall, I don't know what it's called.
Wes calls them horseweeds.
That's what I call them.
Horseweeds.
That's what I call them.
That's what I was told they were all my whole life.
If there can be any place that has those, there's oodles of birds in it.
Yeah.
Early season. I mean, all year long, but early season especially, there's oodles of birds in there.
I think a lot of that is the overhead cover.
I think it's the same thing.
Those leaves, some of those lower leaves are, bigger than a pie tin. They're huge.
Yep. Everybody wants to take those out, and I'm like, no, leave them. Don't mess with those. Leave them alone.
But you hit the nail on the head, Tim. It's not that they're like, people think about this the wrong way all the time. The birds aren't they're not going to water to drink. They're not deer and cows. They're going there because that's where the food is. They're going there because until you get that first freeze, that's where that's going to be where any insects that are remaining are going to be. That's where there's going to be thicker cover because tall grass grows by water. It's going to be that it's not that the water's there. It's what grows around the water that it's going to hold those birds there.
Yep. They're getting all their water. They're getting all their water from either the insects, or they can literally get a drink off of the grass.
The dew off grass.
Off the dew off the grass.
Or even the seeds. If they're out there picking corn or whatever in the mornings, there's going to be
moisture in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And a lot of people, when we say insects, first thing that goes to their mind is grasshoppers, hard body insects. Okay, every slough that has any kind of water in it, those, what are they, mealworms, them red ones?
Yep.
Okay, every body of water that's in pheasant country has mealworms in it.
Yep.
They come to the top when it starts to dry out.
Yep.
Birds go around and peck them worms.
Yep. Oh, there's also another type of cover that I key on too is alfalfa early.
Really?
Because we'll walk alfalfa fields if they haven't been cut yet. And there's birds in them. Yeah, early.
Is it because of the grasshoppers in there?
I think it's just enough cover that they feel comfortable too, and I'm pretty sure that they might be. I mean, some of the birds, the craws that I see, they're eating the alfalfa too.
Just the purple flowers,
the little green leaf,
the little green leaves.
The fresh sprout. Yep.
But there's grasshoppers everywhere down here, so it's. I mean, and I've seen them in those alfalfa fields after they're cut. They're chasing moths around too. I've seen them, chasing those yellow winged moths everywhere.
Sure.
So.
Isn't that a corn borer? Is that what they call that? Or is that the white ones?
I don't know. There's so many different kinds that it doesn't matter down here.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to touch on before we move on, instead of doing like early season, mid-season, late season, we're going to break this down into 2 parts for this pheasant hunt: pre-snow, pre-cold weather, after cold weather. What we're saying in the late season part that we're going to get into here in just a couple minutes is going to be the exact same rules that we're going to play by if we get that early snow in October. So it's not like with sharp tails where it's these defined patterns. With pheasants, it's very much pre-cold weather, post-cold weather. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on before we move on, you kind of brought it up here a few minutes ago, Tim. You have a mark. There is a lot of times in pheasant hunting, whether it's early season or late season, that blockers are absolutely key. They're in fact indispensable because, and it gets even more extreme as the season goes on, with these birds that are going to be running all the way to the end of the cover and then flushing wild out of shotgun range. But in the early part of the year, having somebody at the end of a piece of cover, it doesn't, like whether it's a tree row or a creek bottom or whatever it is that you're going to be hunting, having that person down there to pick you up, also just to stand there and make sure that those birds don't run across the road into another piece of cover or just fly out the end. Having that person down there is absolutely key. We talked about it in a podcast I did with Travis here a couple months ago. Me and Wes did. There's an art to being a good blocker. And Mark is a good blocker. He's experienced.
He's got it down. There's no doubt about it.
Well, that's the thing. If you've never blocked, you don't know. Like me, I've never blocked in a cornfield or on a walk.
Right.
So what do you do? So what's the key?
I'm a walker. I don't want to block.
So
I'm gonna walk because I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
So the key to it, and it doesn't matter if it's like we're going to use a smaller piece of cover as an example, whether it's a creek bottom, a tree row, a strip of sorghum. If you're down, one of those places that, does such things, we don't hunt those very much. Tim, you guys leave those food plots, whatever it is, however, any small piece of cover that you're going to walk, having a blocker at the end is key. But so say there's a tree row, right? Like everybody can visualize a tree row. So that makes it easiest. You got this long, straight piece of cover. And don't stand right at the end of the damn tree row. Stand a good 25, maybe 30 yards back from the tree row. Birds are very predictable, especially if there's wind. If you have a wind that's crossing one way or the other, they're going to go out on the side with the wind, catch the wind, and kind of peel off. So in those situations, you're going to be on that downwind side of that tree row, a little bit removed. But don't stand right at the end. Give yourself a little bit of space there because those birds will run all the way to the end. Then they'll hold a lot of times for the guys that are actually walking. Your job is to be down there and get the ones that are going to get away. Your job is to be standing back away from the end of the cover so that way anything that does bust out early, you're going to have a shot at. If you're in a tree row and you're standing right at the end, you have no shots until they're right here. If you're standing back from the tree row, you got shots here, 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 and off to the sides. Or I've done it a bunch of times. If you have the wind coming right at the bird's back, I see a bird coming up straight overhead, I will turn around and wait for that bird to come over top of my head and then shoot it instead of trying to catch it here.
If you want to kill that bird, that is the exact way you have to do it. I've got plenty of videos of me not doing that, George, and it's not good.
I do too.
So
it's
George
not
has
good.
some of them himself doing that.
It's not good. Now down here, like we don't have near the tree rows that you guys have, so it's a crick line. And if you can hide behind something and be at the end of it, if you have like a bush, like that piece we actually placed corn and left it standing so people could stand in the corn. And I mean, we've seen them come to the end of those draws and
Absolutely.
they see us. And what we want them to ultimately do is turn around and run back towards the guys.
Yep.
And they do it 80% of the time, I bet.
Right. The best thing is if you can find a hay bale at the end of a tree row, that's Christmas morning. I mean, like that for a blocker, like you've got yourself a built-in blind. Like it's something that they're not afraid of. You just stand there. But the one thing that we talked about in the podcast with Travis that people don't do enough is adjusting based on what the birds are doing. If you notice, like say you're in a creek bottom or whatever, if there's kind of these little small pinch points a lot of times, or the spot that
I was just going to say it. I was just going to say it.
Double up the,
like, if you see these little things, these little draws or whatever you want to call it that come out of something that's bigger, those birds will run to those things and they'll be like, hey, let's zip up this way. If you see escape routes, exactly right. If you see like more than 5 or 6 times that a bird's getting up out of that, you as a blocker need to think, why are they doing that? Why are they going out there? Why aren't they going out right here? Well, it's because either they can see you, or B, that is just their normal escape pattern. You need to get yourself over to that spot where those birds are coming out of. You need to be able to kind of adjust on the fly a little bit. And if you have one blocker, you just need to be okay understanding that you're not going to be in the right spot for all the birds. But if you see a discernible pattern, then you need to adjust.
Yep. I would agree 100%.
See, now that George is going to be moving up here, eventually he's going to become he's going to become Mark. He's going to be our, he's going to stand down there and just look mean and just menace those birds right back into the cover for us.
Well, the good thing is I'm bringing Mark up this year so he can teach you that 1 week
there you go.
Mark can teach you how to do it.
The ways of the Mark.
I'm just going to get with that white goalie mask and put it on. The birds are going to look at that and going to say, what the is that?
Yeah, that's right.
Scarecrow.
Exactly right. Okay,
that's funny.
Now pivoting into that, we'll call that post cold weather season. Snow isn't required for these birds to start kind of grouping up and moving.
Okay, 1 minute.
Oh, yep.
Okay,
fire.
So back to blockers. If you are a walker and you're hunting a tree row,
good call. Yeah,
don't be right next to the trees. You got one shot, and that's coming straight out of the trees.
Right.
So back yourself off out there 15 yards, 20 yards. Let your dog work the trees.
Yep.
If you don't have a dog, somebody has to be the designated dog and walk the trees. And you probably ain't going to get no shooting.
Yeah, and then you just need to rotate.
Yep. Just rotate it up.
Yeah, it's Tim.
It's usually me. I'm the youngest and the biggest. So
what helps is if you got somebody walking right in the tree row, you stay 15, 20 yards in front of whoever's walking, 25 yards out to
offset.
left or right. You get a crap ton more shooting.
Yep. And another thing with blockers and walkers, you have to know exactly where your blocker is.
Where each other's at. Yep.
Because I mean,
talk to each other.
Yeah, and I mean, our group has hunted together for 20 years, so we literally know where you're going to be standing. So it's, everybody's knows exactly where everybody's at, but you still have to be mindful of it for sure.
Yeah. Be cognizant and aware of your surroundings and what you're pointing your gun at.
I mean, we've all of us have always, we've had pellets rain down on us before.
Rain's
lives,
fine.
So
rain's fine. Direct shots, not so much. You need to make sure that bird's elevated.
Have some blue sky.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. You don't want nothing direct. As long as you're aiming, you can see sky underneath your barrel and sky over top your barrel. You're fine. Sometimes that blocker might get rained on a little bit. It's not the end of the world. I do very much recommend that blockers do wear some sort of eye protection, whether it would be sunglasses, shooting glasses, whatever it is. Just on the off chance that something like that does happen.
Yep.
Can you guys see
these idiots? Can you guys see these idiots? Can you hear them?
No,
they're absolutely ridiculous right now.
Oh, I know. All of our dogs are just wound to the gills too.
Yeah, they can't get out. You know, you don't want to run them in this kind of weather.
No,
they can't up here. The snow, they run 2 foot, they fall through. They run 2 foot, fall through.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to mention before we move on, if you've never hunted pheasants before, people are super concerned the hen rooster thing, which it's a real thing. It's a law. There's zero actual reason for said law, in my opinion, or if you talk to most game wardens. I personally think that there should be a limit, like the pheasant limit should be just like mallards. You can shoot 3 birds daily, one of which can be a hen.
Yep.
It wouldn't affect the population, not one bit. But since that's not the world we live in, unless you're hunting on preserves, and the thing that people struggle with the most, or the thing that they're the most concerned about when they first come up, that first pheasant hunt, everybody's amped, but they don't want to make a mistake, right? The thing that you need to do, and it's going to help your shooting, it's going to help your shooting percent as well as bird identification. It makes a huge difference if you're looking at the right end of the bird. If you're looking at the front of the bird, the first thing that's going to pop out for your eyes, the first thing that your eyes are going to grab onto is that white ring around those pheasants' necks.
Absolutely.
It's that color contrast, that bright white, and doesn't matter if it's a young rooster or an old rooster, there's going to be that some color contrast on that bird that's going to show you that that's a rooster and not a hen. And if you start looking at that side of the bird instead of looking at the tail, like George does sometimes, you will be absolutely amazed at how many more of those birds end up dead and in your game bag. If you're looking at that tail, you're never going to catch up to it.
No.
But if you're looking at the head of that bird and that white ring around their neck, you're absolutely going to be able to identify that bird. It might only be half a second faster, but half a second with wild bird flushes is the game. That is the absolute difference between bringing that bird home with you and not, a lot of times. So just make sure that you're looking at the right end of that bird when those birds are getting up, and you'll do fine.
Yep. I couldn't have said it better.
Okay. Transitioning now, George, do you have anything else you want to add? I know that you're taking notes.
Prescription glasses will help.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, you gave me a hard time a couple of years ago. And you said, you got to get yourself a pair of damn sunglasses. Well, if I put a pair of sunglasses on, it made it even worse. So last summer, I bought a pair of prescription sunglasses. Unbelievable. All these things you're talking about, they actually came to fruition. You could see the bird more so on the Huns than anything.
Sure.
It was incredible how much that helped.
Yep. Get the right color of lens, and it really makes them pop.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as shooting glasses go, I did have a guy that commented. It's a little bit of a bitchy comment, but whatever. I can't remember. It was the pheasant hunting video that I put out, and he's like, "Boy, I can't believe you're not out there hunting with safety glasses on." I was like, "No," but sunglasses. I will wear sunglasses.
Absolutely.
Shooting glasses in September and in certain parts of the year. You're right about the right colored lenses. If you get a pair of shooting glasses with that orange tinted glass in them, it seems like you can really get those colors to pop really well. And like, especially on those days where it's cloudy or whatever, where you can't, it's too cloudy to wear sunglasses, but you want something.
Yep.
Those orange colored shooting glasses do make a big difference.
Yep. 100%.
Okay. Transitioning now into that colder period. And when we say colder, we're not talking about 50s. We're not talking about 60s. We're not even talking about upper 40s. We're talking about once that temperature gets down to the daytime highs in the mid 30s or lower, and the nighttime lows in the low 20s or lower. That is when you're going to start seeing all these birds that have been out there and all this other shit. They're going to come into this one little patch that's thick. That's where they're going to start grouping up into that thermal cover. They're going to be spending their nights in there. Then they'll kind of disperse out a little bit, and they'll feed for a couple hours in the morning. Then they're going to come back into that thick stuff. This is the time of the year that is game time. This is when it has gone from a nice gentlemanly afternoon walk in October to I got blood in my eyes and murder in my heart. This is the time that we are going to stack up huge numbers of roosters, and you're going to walk a patch of cover or make a walk, and you might see 200, 300, 400 pheasants. This is when the strategy really becomes important. The next thing that I'm going to say goes for early season as well as late season. The biggest mistake that we see new hunters make is they hunt too goddamn fast. Slow down a little bit. How many times last year, George and Wes, at that pheasant camp, did we have people coming up and saying,
every day,
man, we're seeing tons of hens, but there's no... Sorry about that.
Oh,
I had Wes muted because he went out to get us a coffee refill.
Every day.
Yeah,
people would come up and it's like, man, we're seeing all kinds of hens.
We walked this one piece and we kicked out 60 hens, but there wasn't a single rooster in there. I was like, no.
They're there.
They're there. Is what you're doing is you're seeing all these hens getting up ahead of you, and you're speeding up, and your dog's speeding up because you're speeding up. And those roosters, those sneaky sons of bitches, will sit tight and let you walk right past them.
Yes, they will.
They absolutely will. So whether it's early season or late season, there is nothing wrong with stopping, standing still, taking a break, calling your dog back to you, which is a big thing that not enough people do. Call your dog all the way back to your side. It resets their brain, resets your brain, and it makes those birds that are sitting tight nervous as hell.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden you're going to start getting those roosters up.
They either hold extremely tight once you stop moving, and your dog can work them a hell of a lot better.
Yep.
Or they get nervous enough where if you're within 20 yards of them, they're going to go.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and like I said, that doesn't matter late season, early season. It's not a race other than occasionally. George seen me run once this year.
This guy talks the talk, but he gets in a hurry.
Well, is what this particular
piece. He can't let him get away.
All right. Story time with Uncle Tyler. There was we were hunting a pheasant hunting long tail tournament for our local Pheasants Forever chapter. There was 3 of us on this particular piece, and there was a bunch of birds that were going out the tree row. We were tons of really nice cover, but all the birds were running, like Wes was saying, they ran out to that tree row, and then they found their highway, and they were beating feet down towards the end. I took it upon myself as the young, very fit guy in our group, pause for laughs and whatever, that I was going to beat feet as fast as I could to get up towards the end of that tree row and try to cap it. And, sometimes you have to, I just knew that those guys weren't going to be able to do it, but maybe I could get up there a couple hundred, quarter mile ahead of them and maybe stop some of those birds from piling out. But the thicker the cover, the slower you need to walk, and plain and simple. And once it starts to get to be that late season time frame, that means cattails. That means slewgrass. That means the thickest, nastiest shit that you can possibly find. That's where those birds are going to be. That's the time of the year that if you have a dog like Wes with his little lab, now you have the right tool for the job.
And George.
Mm-hmm. And George. Maggie. Yep. And George. Us with our pointing dogs, they're gonna naturally shorten up a little bit. You will occasionally get a dog that will absolutely lose its mind. George seen it. Wes has seen it. I'm sure Tim. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
These dogs will get into a particular piece of cover, and there's so many birds in there that those dogs will just go apeshit. They can't help themselves. It's like you just dip their nose in a bunch of cocaine, and they're like, blah, I'm going to go.
Look at them fly.
Yep.
Yeah. Once they start going, it just makes them that much more excited, I think. Yep. And then they just like back and forth, just flushing whatever they can get off the ground.
Right. Yep. It's bird dog catnip. That's 100%.
Yep. And you're going to see it mostly in young dogs, but you will also see it in very old in old dogs that just haven't experienced that.
Yeah.
It's there's just, I mean, I get it. I'm excited too.
Yeah.
But you as a dog handler at that moment, you need to, any way you possibly can, you need to communicate to your dog generally with a good bit of stimulation. that it needs to come back to you. You need to get it, sit down, get its head right. Don't punish it. You don't need to hit your dog, nothing like that. As soon as that dog starts coming back to you, no more tone, no more nothing else. As long as it's still coming back to you, as soon as it gets back to you, make that dog sit next to you, get its mind right. Like, they understand that they messed up. They really do. But there's sometimes where you'll get into those situations where there's so many birds out there that they just can't help it.
Yep.
And if you can get them settled down for that moment, then you can actually go and you can find where those birds land. You can find all the ones that they missed because they were running around like crazy. And that's when you can actually start putting some birds on the ground.
And another good thing is guys bite off more than they can chew.
Point.
Pick a piece of cover. If there's 2 or 3 of you, that is big enough that the 2 or 3 of you can hunt effectively. Don't go hunt a 170-acre cattail slough with 2 guys.
Oh God, no!
You're doing nothing.
Yeah,
the birds are just running around you and your dogs, and you're not going to get any shoots.
This is such a crucial point. There are a lot of places that we'll drive past that you might see 50, 60, 80 pheasants go into. We'll look at it and be like, nope. We're not going to get
no. You're just going to be. You're going to be frustrated. Yeah, you're going to be frustrated. The dog's going to be frustrated.
You're going to burn your dog up.
Yep. Now I will say here in Iowa, like in that time frame, that's when I like going to hunt the really thick switchgrass. But I would almost rather do it by myself than with anybody else.
Sure.
And all I'm doing is following the dog. I'm not doing anything but following him. I'm trying to be as quiet as I can because, at late season, they're going to bust out as fast as they can. And you know what? Don't ever, there's the thing that everybody wants to walk along those edges, the edge of where the crop ground is. And then the grass starts, everybody wants to walk that. I don't even do that. I just, wherever he wants to go, wherever Mac or Ansel wants to go, I'm not doing anything that the dog doesn't want to do.
Yeah,
because that's what I see a lot of people that want to, especially like the public ground around here. That stuff gets hit so hard so often, and it's always the exact same way they walk it. It's always the exact same. Just attack that thing and let the dog go into the wind, just follow them. Don't do anything else. Just follow them.
That's such a key point too, that, people have, and I'm notorious for it. Wes is pretty notorious for it. Our buddy Nate Burbach might be the master at this. When we take off on a walk and we say, meet back at the truck in an hour could mean 3, just the way it goes. I have a general direction that I'm going to go. But other than that, that's why we feed these dogs. Like, that's why we hunt with these dogs. I can look with my eyes and, file through a bunch of previous hunts, and I have a good idea of where those birds are likely to be. That doesn't mean that's where they are going to be. That dog has got a nose that is going to be able to direct you and kind of hone down on an area where those birds are right now.
Yep.
So just because I'm going to the north and into the wind doesn't mean I'm not going to end up going to the east or the west.
Yep.
Like I'm gonna follow that dog. I'm gonna believe the dog, and that's probably why you like hunting that stuff by yourself, because that stuff's so tall that with another person in there, first of all, you have a hard time kind of keeping track of everybody. Second of all, you don't, like, those walks are kind of a breath of fresh air where it's like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm going this way.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, honestly, a lot of the walk-in Iowa, whatever the mix is that they're putting into that stuff, it is the best thermal cover that's not cattails in our area, because there isn't a whole lot of cattails left anymore.
Right.
That stuff is unbelievable. And they're in blocks of 40 to 80 acres. I mean, it is a big chunk of ground, and it doesn't matter how many times you walk over it, you're still kicking birds out.
Sure.
I mean,
okay. And here's another example of that, Tim. That spot you sent Terry, Bruce, and I to that evening, that public ground spot.
Yep.
I think we got birds there that night because we came in there from a totally different direction than birds had ever seen anybody come in there from.
Yep.
Because they were like, oh, let's stop here. I'm like, no. You can see the parking lot. Everybody stops here. Let's go around over there, come in that way. Then birds ain't going to know what happened.
Yeah.
And sure as hell.
Yep, so, you went right up to where I told you to kind of go in from, and that's nobody.
And everybody
goes in
else
that way.
stopped sooner, and you just see all the tracks and the empty shotgun shells laying there. It's like, well, everybody stops here. Let's not stop here.
And that honestly, that chunk of ground is
that's nice.
It's intimidating too to a lot of people. They're like, we don't even have any idea how to walk that, and you just go walk it.
Yeah, sure. Just follow your dogs. Yep. That's what we were doing.
Yep.
We just broke it into thirds, and wherever our dogs went in that third, that's where you went. And
yep.
Yeah, that was a good spot.
Yeah. With Tim kind of touched on this a little bit just a few minutes ago, that late season time frame. This is when it is a lot more critical to be as quiet as you possibly can. You're going to make noise. Dogs are going to make noise. For God's sakes, don't bring your whistles. For the love of God, do not bring your whistle.
I don't even really like hunting with.
All I have left now is a rape whistle. That's the only one I carry.
I don't even like people that have beepers on their dogs anymore. I just really don't. It just
beepers. I mean, I've gone back and forth on this a million times.
Or do you mean them loud hawk screaming?
Them sons of bitches. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I had them on my dogs, and I don't know if it matters or not, but I just
once the Garmin was invented to hook with your handheld,
right?
Yeah.
What do you need it for?
Right.
You don't.
I go back and forth on this. I think that I mean, I've very successfully shot lots of pheasants with beeper collars.
Same.
I don't know that. What's the best way to put this? I don't know that it's going to negatively or positively affect a hunt. I think there's birds that are just going to go no matter what. There are birds that are just going to hold no matter what. And those in between birds, sure, some of them might go because they hear a beeper go off, but it's not a human sound.
No.
I certainly don't think those hawk scream things will actually make a bird sit tight.
No.
That's bullshit. Great marketing tool, by the way. Whoever came up with that idea, give yourself a bonus because you sold a lot of damn collars
with it.
I guess we won't be picking them up as a sponsor after that last comment.
Yeah,
I have to makes anymore.
No,
they don't. No, they don't.
I got to tell you, a beep that goes off every 6 seconds. Think about how much ground your dog covers in 6 seconds.
What I would honestly,
it's at 10 o'clock, it's at 2 o'clock, it's at 6 o'clock. I mean, the birds are actually, I think they would become somewhat confused over where the hell the threat is coming from.
What I would like, if you don't, I mean, if somebody had come up with a collar that has the button,
GPS and a beeper,
GPS on it, of course, but a beeper that I can push the button and it'll sound off.
Well,
have it one time, but I mean, so I can hear it or somebody can hear it a long distance.
Doctor does that.
Doctor does.
Yep. That TMB dual, you can hit the button and just one beep. So George was in. I actually think that beeper collars in cattails, if you're running a lab or a pointing dog for that matter, is a really nice tool for the job because you're not looking at your watch, you're not checking your handheld, nothing like that. You're hunting with your ears, your eyes are always up, so that way, especially with a flushing dog, you can keep track of where that dog's at. Like you were talking about that switchgrass where it's head high, you can't see the dog, and even if you have them on, and I've had it happen in cattails, I'm sure you have too, where a dog has gone on point in the cattails and you walk up and you're looking at your GPS and
the bird goes and you're like shit, and
then the dog's at your feet but you can't see it. There's room for beeper collars for sure. It's a good tool, especially that late part of the year where you're hunting in that stuff that's so tall that even with a GPS collar you can be 5 feet away from your dog and you might not see it. Anyways, going into we'll use your question from the beginning. The cover that I'm going to be focused on in late season is the thickest piece of cover inside of an egg field. I'm going to hunt right in a damn egg field. We call it slooping. Yep. You'll find let's use a mile by a mile example here. If you have a mile piece of ground here, you're likely to have 2, 3, maybe even 4 different types of egg. the two that I'm going to be focused, well, three that I'll be focused on. We don't have much corn here, and honestly, the corn up here for whatever reason doesn't seem to hold as much birds as it does down by you. Soybeans, late season, huge draw. Those birds absolutely love soybeans late. The other, and well, for example, that field right over here is soybean field, and there's 400 birds in it every day. The other one is wheat stubble. There's always a lot of leftover food inside wheat stubble. And inside all these fields,
and don't forget peas.
Yeah, peas too.
Fields.
Peas too.
They're pretty good.
Yep. Inside all these fields, there'll be 2, 3, 4, 10 little potholes that are, whether they're dry, whether they have water in them. I actually prefer the ones that have water in them.
Yeah.
Just because you have a really thick band of cover all the way around these things. It's going to be like taller slough grass on the outside. It's going to meet up to cattails. And then on the other side of the cattails, it's going to be water, which would be frozen. So it's ice. If you have two guys, one guy on the outside, one guy on the inside walking on the ice, and you run your dogs through the cover in the middle, and you're going to get 95% of all the birds out of that stuff up, whether they go out wild, whether they hold until you get there, whatever the case, but you're putting your dog in the best possible position to get those birds to work for you. Wes brought up a good point earlier. Don't bite off more than you can chew. If you have a big piece of water with cattails that are head high, that's a 60 or 40 yard, 50 yard. Yep. Just like that, George. Exactly. Just like that. If you see something like that on your Onyx and it's inside ag, you're going to find pheasants. Once you get some snow on the ground, if I get into one of those slough bottoms and I'm not seeing pheasant tracks,
gone.
I'm out.
Yep.
Right.
Go to another spot.
Yep.
Their tracks are tall tail. If there's no tracks, there's no birds.
That's right.
Yep. 100%.
The other thing that we're going to do a lot of, and one of the spots that we've hunted this year that was in one of the YouTube videos I put out, and I've been hunting it now with our buddy Nate for the last few years. In certain parts of the state, you'll get these big draws that are packed with these plum thickets, and there's really tall grass in the bottoms. There's some cattails, there's some not, but there's all, like Wes was saying, with this woody cover in there, and there are these big deep. They might be 100 feet deep,
if not deeper. I mean, they're draws that run into the Missouri River, so they're deep.
They're deep,
and so inside the thickets, then there's actually, if there's an open spot, there's grass, and then there's buckbrush, and then there's a big elm tree, whatever. It's a very diverse woody habitat,
and it's all surrounded by ag. So these spots will collect obscene numbers of pheasants. I mean, obscene. 500, 800, 1,000 birds in one of these draws is not out of the realm of possibility. Now with spots like that, though, you're going to need a group. You're going to need blockers. You're going to need a couple pushers, 5, 6, 7 guys. That's something else that we should probably touch on real quick.
But don't you think you can hunt a piece like that by yourself?
You can,
but you're gonna have a lot of bump birds. But you only have to get 3.
Sure. But so the way that I look at it is there's big group spots and there's little group spots. I would classify these as big group spots, just because if I'm gonna walk a spot like that, that's that primo, I'm
right.
I'm some shooters.
I'm looking to kill 21 roosters out of this spot.
Right. We all have to remember that Tyler absolutely hates pheasants.
I hate them.
He wants them all dead. So
I do.
We have to remember that as a factor.
But I would rather go and hunt some of these smaller little potholes by myself with my dog, do some slooping, that kind of stuff with 1, 2 guys. Those are those smaller pieces where you're going to be able to work them effectively. You're going to be able to move all the birds out of there. It's going to be nice, enjoyable, all that kind of stuff. These big spots, it's freaking war. It is us against them, and blood is going to get drawn. Sometimes from us, sometimes from, hopefully more from them. But there was someone's
feelings usually get hurt too.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. You get yelled at because you're in the wrong spot. And it ain't like you can. I'm not a cow moose. I can't just go dive off into that canyon and just deep snow and get to the other side.
That's
I got yelled at.
That's the other thing. We should stress to people. When you're at the pickup truck, and let's say you have 6 guys, and you're standing there and you're strategizing, and that's great. The thing of it is, once you've covered that initial 200 to 300 yards, there's another whole set of covers. There's another whole set of objectives. There's a place the birds are going to funnel down in. And if you haven't been there before, it's difficult.
You don't know.
Right.
And then you're screaming and hollering in the 20-mile-an-hour North Dakota wind, go over there. And he's like, what's he say? I said, I think he said stay there. I think I have a spot in my underwear, but I don't know what he's saying. It's difficult.
Right. And until the nice thing about where you guys hunt, Tim, is you guys kind of have the same covers year after year, and you've been hunting with the same group of guys for a long time. So it's like, okay, we're going to go to this spot, and everybody gets that picture in their head where it's like, okay, I know what we're going to do. We're going to have me and Tim and Wes, we're going to walk this, and Mark's going to go up on the road, and George is going to come in from this way, and it's going to be great. In a lot of these spots, in the situation that we find ourselves in, and you find yourself in quite often too now, Tim, we're hunting with people that have never been here. Yeah. We're hunting with people that maybe have never shot a pheasant. We're hunting with people that don't know what they're likely to do, all that kind of stuff. So I've been better about it. I've been making an effort to not yell at people. But
he just yells at certain people.
I have no problem yelling at Wes. Yeah.
God damn it, Wes, you know better.
Well, okay.
I had never been there before in my life. Right. How the hell am I supposed to know all the birds are going to go up this draw on the opposite side? And I was told to go stand on this fence line. And I finally said, screw that. I'm moving over here where all the birds are. Moved over there. Next thing I'm getting yelled, "Run your ass over there." I'm like, there ain't no freaking way I'm going down through that canyon in this snow. By the time I get to the 45, bottom, you guys are going to be here.
45 minutes ago, he just said it's very important when you see the birds are escaping an alternate route, you adjust. I got that.
I
got that on. That's on. We have got that documented right here. So when it happens, if I have to pull this video up, I will.
He sort of adjusted. Now, the problem was, okay, so on this particular walk,
and somebody had already made their way over that way. And I'm like, I don't need to go over and get in the way there. I'll just stay here.
In this particular draw system, all these birds were just hugging that south side of this canyon. The canyon's 150 yards wide. And they're hugging that south side of the canyon because that's where all the cover was. And those birds were just like hundreds of them.
Any little finger draw that came up out of that canyon, they were going up.
Right. And so thankfully we had Dave Miller from Acker USA, who was up on top, who adjusted. He got some shooting. One of his buddies worked part of the way up the hill, and he got a couple.
No, they lost me. There we go.
And then there was another guy standing right down on the bottom, and then Wes over here in no man's land. Where Wes was over here in no man's land, if he would have went 100 yards down and kind of like helped fill in the western front over there on the south side of the canyon, we would have. I mean, we killed a limit.
The hardest part is that was right after our first snow.
It was pretty brutal.
And I kid you not, when I stepped off that field edge, I went almost to my breasts in snow.
I like that he said breasts, by the way, not chest.
I think they're.
I mean, really, that's only 4.5 feet, isn't it?
I was like, "What in the living?" And he thinks I'm gonna freaking walk down there, and I climb my ass back up out of there, and I'm like, "I'm staying up here."
Yeah.
So I think I've got something figured out here. We got to get Ben Brennigan on the phone, and let's get Onyx to develop a tool that shows you can sync up with 6 guys, let's say, and it shows each guy's location. And there can be a person that has a pencil, and you can draw on the map.
So nice. Just
you can seriously,
John
Madden it from a quarter mile away, and you can just say, "Hey, this is where I need you to go to here," and put the X. I mean,
But
let's face it, they can do that.
You're talking about onyx, George. In sharptail season, I am marking my sloughs that I can hunt by myself.
Sure.
For pheasants.
For pheasants.
Yeah.
And in the notes, I put, if it's small enough for one guy, 1. If it's a 10 guy spot, 10.
Right.
Yeah. And
right.
I'll stick up for Tyler a little bit because I do the same thing. Like, I'll bet you
got to have one field marshal out there.
Almost every video that I have, I'm cursing at somebody underneath my breath. You can see it on the video, and I'm like, that motherfucker's not in the right spot.
He's not in the right spot. Yeah.
And the birds are blown out, and I'm like, God damn it.
And it's always a guy that has never been there before.
Oh, no. It's usually my buddies that like, you dumb bastards. We've hunted this thing for 20 years. The birds fly out the exact same fucking spot, and you don't realize.
See, now, if we go hunt that spot after the first snow next year, I know the spot I'm going to. I'm going there first thing. If I'm a blocker, my ass is going right where I need to know. I know I will get some shooting.
Yeah, George, he's going tits deep.
He's going to go, yeah.
He's going
let's just hope it don't freaking blizzard that first snow. Let's just hope it's a good, nice little 3-inch, just straight down, no wind.
Yeah,
because that happens here.
Good luck with that one.
A guy can wish, right?
That happens here all the time where we don't have any wind and we don't ever have any drifting.
Yeah, the only thing that's different on what you guys are saying down here is we go to the thicker cover that's on the creek lines, but you can noticeably see them change from corn to beans. You can, but it's usually when it gets like stupid cold that they'll go key on them beans.
It's easier scratching, easier to find food in a bean field than in a cornfield?
100%. 100%.
And I think that's why all these are over here in this bean field, is because it's the easiest place to scratch.
Yeah, I mean, wheat stubble's got to be a little harder for them to find the food. So why would they not go to beans?
Well, so here the hilltops in a wheat field will blow clean.
Yeah.
And same in a bean field. I think the difference between that and corn stubble is that corn stubble will actually collect some snow.
Yeah.
And so the snow is going to be deeper there, even though there's going to be food there, and they can get to it if they look for it. They can like, hey, there's a bean field right there where we're not going to have to look through any snow. Yep. Like you guys, I mean, we talk about the wind here. You guys get a bit of breeze down there in Iowa too.
Oh yeah,
so
it's breezy.
It's not it's apples to apples really.
Yeah. But you can see it like right now, they're out eating beans. They're not, and we don't really have hardly any snow, but they're out eating beans. They're in the bean field eating.
One of the things I've kind of putting together in my brain right now is we're all talking about how we hunt pheasants. We kind of hunt pheasants in the same place from the beginning of season to the end of the season. We just start out in the lesser, denser cover and work our way into the denser stuff as the season moves along.
Sure.
Yeah, like us. I mean, you can find them on fence lines early. The terraces are unbelievable. Yeah. And usually when we hunt them late season, we'll kick them out of the thick cover up into the terrace, and you can go chase them up there too if you want to. I mean,
kind of like we did that day.
Yep. So I mean,
they
there's
were
that
actually
way
in the terrace first, right? Weren't they?
That time you guys were here, it's been a weird year because it hasn't ever really been bad enough to push them into the stupid thick cover. I mean, we didn't have you guys didn't have winter till a couple weeks ago, did you? Yeah, we didn't have winter until like the first part of February.
Do you even have snow on the ground?
A little bit. There's like an inch and a half or so, but it's going to be 60 degrees next week.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be, man. I mean, it's going to be close to 50.
It's going to be almost 50 here. So.
It's nuts.
I saw a graph on something this evening, and it talked about the next month, and it showed extreme warm up across the center of the country.
Sorry. Go ahead.
It showed extreme warm up over the next month, and New England wasn't so much, but the further you went to the west, it's going to get hot and stay hot, it said. So that'll be interesting to see.
This is Travis got a real good kick out of this. This is the video clip the day that Wes was talking about going up to his tits in the snowdrift. I did the same. And
he was having sex down in there, is what it sounds like.
God dang it.
And I wanted to talk to you about, I was watching that video the other day, And are those my gloves you're wearing? Pulling yourself out of the snow? God damn it.
God dang right they are.
I said to myself, that's where those things are. They're still in his truck.
Oh, that's not the video.
That's funny. That is really funny. But yeah, hopefully the fog thing is true and our March is extremely wet is what I'm hoping.
I got a question for you guys.
My dad's a farmer, Tim, and he is religious about writing down the day that it's foggy. 90 days within 90 days after the fog, you have moisture.
Yeah, and it's supposed to hit like right the middle of March.
Well, that would be good.
You guys,
when it
comes.
You
absolutely.
Need some moisture.
Absolutely.
Fire away, George.
Yeah, you talked a little while ago about the bird identification, and we talked about the white ring around the neck, and I get that. I understand that. I've heard an answer to this one both ways, and so I always err on the side of caution. Vocally, will a hen cackle when it flies?
No,
I've never heard one.
But not all roosters cackle.
Right.
No, I understand that. So, but the big thing I think is early season with the immature roosters when they are cackling, and I'm not talking a full blown, just a, and that's it. But so that I never trusted that because that bird's going. It's like I don't see any color on that bird whatsoever. But
it's a rooster.
It's a rooster if he cackles.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The other thing, and this is going to sound weird, but I would bet that both Tim and Wes will back me up on it. Once you hunt pheasants enough, the wing beats of a rooster sound different than the wing beats of a hen
by a long ways.
You can you can watch every single one of our videos. Every single one of our videos.
You can hear the difference.
Tell. It's completely different. It's completely different.
So there was a part of one of the YouTube videos I put up here a couple weeks ago that this rooster gets up out of this bush, and I mean it's that quick. It's just bang, and I shot it. And in the video, you can't tell what it was right away. I could visually see the ring around the neck, but as soon as that bird touched wings, I knew it was a rooster. 100% knew that it was a rooster.
And do you know why that is? That the wing beat is different?
I would assume
it's the weight of the bird.
Yeah,
I was going to say it has to be the weight of the bird. I wouldn't think. I mean, maybe their feathers are bigger too. Their wings are bigger. I mean, more force.
It's anatomy.
Well, a lot of it is the total anatomy of the bird. It takes more wing span to lift a heavier body.
Sure.
Right.
That's why it's a slower. Like hens are just, they're like rattlesnakes almost.
Right. Just yeah.
And a rooster,
it's just different.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Once you've hunted them enough, and you can like. It's more consistent than listening for a cackle by a long shot. Yeah. But once you've done it enough, I'm not saying that you're going to be able to figure it out on your first go around, but it's a big difference in the way that they sound when they take flight.
It's very seldom that you ever shoot it. Well, I have seen a few that have come through the camps that it's hard to tell.
Right.
Yeah.
It just don't happen. There's some color on that bird.
Yeah.
Of some sort.
And
somebody gets a little bit excited that they might be shooting a bird.
Yeah. But hey, you're a grown up. You got to take the good with the bad. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake.
The crazy ones are
one of these guys that frickin' mud stomps that son of a bitch into the frickin' slough bottom.
You have to be.
They tell you can't
be a man about it. Call the game warden. Tell him.
Sure. The game wardens here will tell you that like mistakes happen.
It does.
And I've had it happen where it wasn't even like, and everybody's gonna, shit on me for this, but that's fine. I'm used to getting shit on a little bit, but they're
allegedly,
allegedly, I had a rooster get up, and I'm sure Tim's had it happen. I know you've had it happen, and George, I'm sure you've had it happen. Rooster gets up, and I'm swinging on that rooster, and I pull the trigger, and at the same time, here comes a hen, and like I killed the rooster, but the hen caught the side of the pattern. Hen goes down. I go over, pick up the rooster. It's just going to happen. It's the way that it works. That's why I would like to formally say that I would be very much in favor of having the limit be 3 pheasants, with one of which can be a hen, just to help kind of alleviate some of those mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
here in North Dakota, it's not the end of the world.
Nope.
You can be a man, like Wes said. You can call the game and fish. In the proclamation, it says you just can't take it out of the field with you.
Yeah.
They're like, and just like with ducks, with mallards, if you had that stipulation in there, everybody's going to try to shoot roosters anyways.
Yeah.
Everybody. Like you don't want to be the guy who comes home with a hen mallard, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be the guy who comes home with a hen pheasant, but it would.
Well, and the other thing you got to look at it is, you hunt the late season, your dogs are going to catch birds.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And 99% of them are going to be hens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't happen very often. They catch roosters.
Yeah.
No.
So, I mean, it happens.
Well, I mean, it's just, and like you said, your game wardens ours are the same. If accidents happen, they just, just don't.
Yeah.
Don't abuse it, and you're going to be fine. Like, don't go out shooting hens, nothing like that. But accidents happen, and when that happens, you just, what do you do? There ain't nothing you can do about it.
Right. We kind of got a little bit sidetracked here with our little side quest on stuff.
Okay.
Late season, the other thing that I wanted to bring up,
and there's a difference between the beginning of the late season and the end of the late season.
Right.
Like at season close.
Right.
Boy.
You got an intruder. Tim's got an intruder in the house.
They might be dead. I don't know. No. Oh, no, come back down. We're good. We're good. Nobody broke in yet.
Yeah, I've met your dogs. They're ferocious.
Yeah, they're
ferocious, just like mine.
As bad as Tyler's.
They got a pretty strong bark. That's the only good thing about it.
Yeah. But so we talked a little bit about the cover that we're going to focus on, whether it's those draws, any kind of thick cover, like Wes said, the woody kind of the bushes and all that kind of stuff. Now, and we touched on this a little bit, but the strategy that goes into late season pheasant hunting compared to early season pheasant hunting is just next level. We will have basically a whiteboard drawing up battle plans. Like late season, and again, it's going to change a little bit. If me and Wes are just going out by ourselves, we're just going to go slooping. That's what we're going to do. But a lot of times at late season, that's when a big group of people is actually beneficial. You can hunt some of those bigger pieces of cover that are going to collect more and more and more and more birds that you can't effectively hunt with two people. So I have in my mind, I have our big group spots and I have our 2-3 guy spots. And on those days where you have 5, 6, 7 guys, these are those days where you're going to be able to push through some of those bigger pieces with blockers, and the blockers are going to get plenty of shooting. They're going to end up with limits. The walkers are going to get plenty of shooting, end up with limits. And that's when you need to, and I'm not necessarily the best communicator on exactly where I want people to go sometimes. But that's when, we're not going to have that conversation at the truck, at the spot. We're going to have that conversation over our phones on Onyx. Going to be dropping pins. Tim, you go stand here. George, you go stand here. Me and Wes are going to come in from here. This is the likely escape routes. We're going to have all these conversations away from the spot, because when you get out of a truck and you slam a door and you're putting collars on dogs, and especially on any of the public spots that we hunt up here, which we hunted quite a few in November.
Don't slam your door.
Yeah. Don't be yelling at your dog at the pickup. Make sure that you're as quiet as you can be and have your stuff ready. So when we get there, the first thing I do, I don't take my dogs out of the truck first. I'm grabbing my shotgun, making sure I got plenty of shells, putting my vest on, turning my collar on, turning my transmitter on, gently closing the door. Then I'm going to go and grab the dog. And when I open up the tailgate and I get that collar on the dog, we're gone. I don't want to be standing there waiting for somebody else. I don't want to, I got to go back and get my transmitter. Oh, I got to go back
putting your boots on.
No, none of that.
I want you ready.
Like once we stop the truck, I want less than 3 minutes from the time that we hit park until the time we're entering said cover.
Did you say I don't want you to forget your transmitter?
Yeah, right.
What, didn't you have to go back to the farm that day, Wes?
Me?
Oh no, it was
Bruce.
Bruce did. Bruce did. That's right.
Bruce or Terry,
right.
one or the other.
Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce.
Yeah, but he didn't put his dog on the ground neither.
No.
Yeah.
You know, so and like it's gonna be, you know, that's one of those tough shit moments.
Yeah.
Sorry, dude. I'm sorry you forgot your stuff, but we're here. We're parked. These birds are gonna go whether we're out there hunting or not.
Yeah.
You're just gonna miss out. And that's when you're gonna end up getting, you know, you can come with and walk, just don't put a dog on the ground.
Yep.
Like it's totally okay. And the other thing that we touched on a little bit with being realistic about the size of a piece of cover that you can effectively hunt, you also really, 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 it's super important. You need to be very honest about the number of dogs that you need to effectively hunt a piece of cover. More dogs isn't the answer.
No.
Not necessarily. No.
And if you're blocking, you really don't need a dog.
No,
absolutely not. Yeah,
Not
our blockers don't have
Not
dogs.
unless it will sit right there at heel.
Yeah.
You know, like
if you got a lab and he's, you know, he's
my
good
Maggie,
at place.
she would sit right there and
Yeah.
she won't budge.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Right.
You're in a blind or something. Then they can just go pick birds up.
Yeah. Then they can be a, you know, a retriever, you know, and picking up birds.
I got one dog that would be definitely in the truck.
Yeah, but she would also be barking a lot and probably, you know, whatever.
I agree.
But it's like if you're hunting a piece of cover that is like what on that walk that we've been talking about where Wes almost got stuck, where I did get stuck for a minute, there was two walkers and 3 blockers and 4 blockers. That's right. And me and Nate each ran one dog. I took one side of this draw. Nate took the other side of that draw. We took our 2 oldest, most veteran dogs.
But in all actuality, we should have had one more blocker and one more walker.
Sure, but that was a group we had.
Yeah.
We had 6.
Yeah.
But if we would have taken, if Wes would have came with us and we added one more dog to the equation, it wouldn't have added one thing to the hunt, and in fact, it would have probably detracted the success that we had as walkers. So you need to be okay leaving a dog in the truck. If there's 6 guys out, you almost never need 6 dogs.
No,
you don't. 3 tops. Like you just don't need it.
Well, I see it that if you're hunting a spot big enough for the amount of guys you have, 1 dog per 2 guys.
That's about right.
And that's about right.
Yep. You can overdog a spot pretty easy. I would much rather err on the side of having not quite enough dog power instead of having too much.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Like there's a few spots that we have that in late season, the blockers are more important than the walkers.
Definitely.
Are by far.
Yeah. This is one of those spots.
Yep.
This is absolutely one of those spots. That's why we had 2 walkers and 4 blockers.
Yeah, like that food. When we hunted that food plot spot, we needed another 1, 2, 3. We needed another 4 blockers on that
for sure. Yeah. For sure.
But we had the right amount of guys walking too. That's the thing. Like so it's But and then getting people volunteer to block on spots is another thing.
Sometimes it can be tough.
Sometimes you have to be that field marshal and be like, no, it's your turn to block. It's
right.
It's your turn.
Yep. And like, that's the only way to do it is just be fair. And there's like me as well. And Wes lives here now too. And George is going to live here. So their roles are going to change a little bit. But the way I always think about it, I'm the host. I'm okay leaving my dogs back so somebody else's dogs can get the experience.
Absolutely.
Like I have like no problem. I'm much more, what's the best way to put this? I'm certainly more likely to yell at a person than somebody else's dog. So if they get a young dog that, they need that experience, whatever, my dogs don't have to come. My dogs get plenty of opportunities. They've been on lots of birds. It's not gonna hurt my feelings if I have to leave a dog in the truck, but everybody kind of needs to be that way. You need to be okay just saying, I'm just a hunter right now. I'm just walking. I'm just a gun. My dogs have had plenty of, over the course of say a week-long hunting trip, dogs are going to get tired. Dogs are going to get worn out, and everybody,
especially if you're hunting late season and they're in the snow, dogs are one walk and they're done.
Yeah.
They're freaking tired because if they're bounding,
right,
that takes, I read an article once, I think it's like 78 or 80% more energy to bound than to run.
Right.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right.
Sure.
And getting through all that stuff. And on top of that, you'll end up with cuts under eyes from the cattails. You'll end up with raw noses. You're going to end up with dogs that are just
testicles,
raw testicles for sure.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not on people,
not
George.
people, George. I'm talking about dogs.
I don't know if Wes is wearing those assless chaps again. I didn't know.
George, I'm going to tell you right now, George, if you got your nuts out walking through them cattails, buddy, you're
more of a man than I ever thought you were.
I don't know what goes on up there in New Hampshire, but damn.
All I can think of is that old guy on the old guy with the walker. What cartoon's that? An adult cartoon?
Family Guy, Herbert,
Family Guy, the old guy with the walker.
Yeah,
he's got that.
That's kind of George a little bit.
He's got that little whistle to his voice.
Yeah, all right, I got something for you guys we haven't covered, and I don't know if you just skipped it or missed it or whatever, but a lot of people are curious about this. Early season versus late season chokes and shot size.
Oh,
good.
Yeah,
good
we didn't even talk about that.
No. So, and we did cover it in the Sharp Tail and Hunt episode. 28 gauge or 410, it's not going to change for me. So I'm going to have a little bit of I'm going to have a difference in chokes in the 28 gauge, and maybe shot size, maybe not. Shooting boss in 28 gauge, I'm going to be shooting improved cylinder modified early, say from the opening weekend until the 1st of November. Then at that point, I'm going to switch to modified, improved modified. And that early part of the year, I've shot a lot of pheasants with those Boss 7s and 8s, tons of them. Never had a problem with them.
No.
Once that November time frame comes, I am going to up my shot size to the 6s. 6s and a tighter choke is really good medicine on those birds. With my 410,
explain why. I understand, but a lot of people are probably wondering why.
The bigger shot size on the pellets will just cause just a little bit more trauma. It'll penetrate those feathers, and once they start getting feathered up, it's almost like a suit of armor on them. So you need just a little bit bigger pellet size to beat through those feathers and get into those vitals. I've shot 5s for a lot of years. I'm shooting the 28 gauge. My 28 gauge pattern's a lot better with the 6s than it does with the 5s. I just don't, 5s are a little overkill for me. I've had no problem killing roosters with that Boss 28 gauge all the way out to 45, 50 yards on a pretty good basis. You need to be pretty realistic about your shooting ability and the quality of your dog to find a wounded bird if you're shooting out at distance. I'm not going to take shots where the birds are going over like a ton of really super thick cattails out at distance, because even if you kill the bird, you might not find it.
Yeah.
If I'm on the edge of a wheat field or something like that, and that bird's going out over the wheat, I'm going to give it one. With the 410, my 410 has got fixed chokes. It's fixed modified full, and I shoot 6s for everything year round. Wes, what do you
Same.
Yep. Like
out of my 28 early, it's if I'm shooting a side by side, it's probably improved in I think this year I ran an IC.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what was in the other side. Probably modified.
IC mod.
Yeah. And that's till that first snow. After the first snow, if I'm shooting a semi-auto, I'm shooting a mod or an improved modified.
Yep.
Either depends on what the birds are doing. If they're getting out wild, I'm going to go into an improved modified.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
I don't carry him with me, but I like Tyler, I moved from a 7 or 6 early up to a 5.
Right.
Because my gun pattern's pretty well with a 5.
Right.
Yep. And I mean, that's the key too, that everybody needs to know. Whatever gun you're using, go shoot it on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And see what the pattern does, and shoot all your chokes. Shoot every choke you got and take it out to distance. I am a little different on my early season up until just about Thanksgiving. I will shoot skeet improved out of my 20, and it'll be 7.5. I usually shoot those golden pheasant 7.5s if I can find them. That's my early season pheasant load, and then late season it goes to 5s. But I change my chokes to. It just depends. I mean, I get stupid sometimes, and if it's really they're getting out a long ways, I mean, I'll do the light modified.
Right.
But it'll probably be improved modified most of the time.
Right. Right.
People are like, you shoot pheasants with improved on late season. I'm like, well, I mean, if you know what your gun does, then
and
there's
what
no
people,
problem.
Improved cylinder is a deadly choke out to 30 yards, period.
Yeah.
And late season or early season, you're going to get a good number of the pheasants that are going to sit super, super tight. And I mean, I don't know how many times this year alone
they get up within 10 yards of you,
5 feet.
Yeah.
Like I've had dogs on point, and I've spent minutes kicking in the cattails or whatever, and they get up at your feet.
Yep.
I see mods fine.
Yeah.
Year round. You could, like, I tell everybody that, like, I mean, just if you throw away the rest of your chokes, you're totally fine.
Good. Yeah.
And you don't need
shooting them over dogs. You know,
exactly.
If you're shooting them at passing birds, I can understand that you're going to go up to an improved, modified or whatever,
or light modified. Yep.
Yeah,
or
a light modified, or
if you're a blocker.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have no problem choking up if you're blocker.
If you're blocking a lot,
Yep.
I can understand that. But if
Mark's
you're
got that 1100 with a full choke fixed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if that bird's inside 60, it's in trouble.
Yeah. And pick your shots that you're shooting them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Tyler was saying,
I see mod is if you're shooting them over pointing dogs, you don't need to go into anything
the
else.
only reason that I like my ideal choke configuration for all my guns would just be straight up mod.
Yeah.
Year round for all species of game except for maybe Mearns quail. Then I would want improved cylinder.
Yeah.
Yep.
But mod, throw the rest of them away.
Yeah.
I see mods fine. If you're getting into the improved mods, make sure you pattern it, because not all shells shoot well through those tighter constrictions.
Yes.
Yep.
I don't I like that improved modified for the late season, just in case. And we haven't touched on this yet, but you need, especially with pheasants, embrace the double tap. If you shoot a bird and you see it going down, but its head's still up and moving, shoot that bird again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And having that improved modified for the second barrel helps with that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So if you didn't put quite a good enough shot on it on that first shot, you're going to have a good pattern even at range with that improved modified, and you're going to be able to put hopefully a kill shot on it. But all you need to do is break a leg too.
If you're not the first one that shot the bird, there's no law saying that you can't shoot that bird if you see his head up. How many times that happened this year when we've been hunting together? Somebody would shoot one, and I'm like, I know what's going to happen if I don't shoot this thing, and I put another one in it, and their birds laying there dead.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't if like you said, if that bird's going down and it's still alive, everybody in our group knows you bring it down. Yeah, put another one in it. If it looks like it's still alive, go ahead, put another one in it.
Right.
And like Tyler's point about if you shoot them over heavy cover, like super thick, tall cattails, good luck.
Well,
I mean, it's hard, and especially if they're 50. If they're cruising off at 50, let them go.
Yeah.
If you do wound that bird, you ain't more likely not gonna find him.
Right.
Yep. So
there's other considerations too. If you're in one of those spots like we were talking about, where there's a shitload of birds going out, and you take one of those bad shots, you take yourself out of the game.
Yeah.
Because if you're in one of those spots where there's a ton of birds going,
no, you're over there looking for that damn bird for 20 minutes. And
me or Tim or Wes or George as a field marshal in that situation, I ain't waiting. Because we got birds moving.
Yeah.
We have got to keep going here. You can't, sure, I'll stop and stand for 5 minutes. Then I'm gone. Because we have, this whole walk is predicated on us slowly pushing pressure towards blockers. As soon as we stop and stand for 10 minutes and we're looking for a down bird, 15 minutes, those birds are going to go out in between. Blockers aren't going to get shooting. We're not going to get shooting. Now the spot's done.
Yep. Or even like if you're hunting a really big piece of cover, them birds can run right around that guy you have on the end.
Yeah.
And you're just shit. I try to tell everybody opening weekends are our worst time for that to happen.
Yep.
Like, okay, we got a big barrage of birds are getting up. It's early. There's a ton of birds in this spot. And people are just dumping birds, just dropping them and not paying attention. And I'm like, guys, stop shooting. You know, it's not doing any justice for us not to find these birds. I go, if we've got 2 down, stop. Don't shoot anymore until we find those birds.
Right.
Let the dogs get those birds, because every time you shoot, our dogs are looking up. They're looking for other birds to fall.
Right. Yeah, you're breaking their concentration from the bird they were just looking for.
Exactly. And then we got to start all over again. So it's like, be mindful of your shooting and how many birds are on the ground. And like you guys said in them videos with your Huns, you need to mark it. If you shoot that bird, it's your responsibility to get
to
me
it.
Yep.
At least worrying about the second one.
And if you don't have a dog, and if you don't have the dog and somebody else has got the dog,
you need to that spot.
Tell them right where to go with that dog so they can find that bird.
Yeah. Right. The other thing
that's my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah. My other thing on that same kind of line of thinking would be, whether you have a dog or not, and you're in one of these spots where, whether it's cattails or whatever the case may be, you get a bird that goes and you shoot that bird. You don't take your eyes off that spot. You walk in a straight line to the spot that you either think or know that bird went down
Most definitely.
And then you call the dogs to you, or you call somebody else over with a dog, but you stand there. And until, like, we're not thinking about doubles anymore. We're not thinking about shooting multiple birds. You're done at that moment until that bird gets in your vest. You just go over there to where you think that bird's at, and you don't move. You stay right there and either call the dogs back to you or get somebody over there with a dog. Or a lot of times, probably certainly more than half the time, you'll just end up walking over there and picking up the bird yourself. You don't need to call a dog back, nothing else. But as long as you just keep your eye, it's like, okay, it fell next to that tall cattail right there. Straight line, beeline, no break in concentration. Get over there, give it a real quick look around, make sure you can't just reach down, pick the thing up. And then after that, no more rules. But it goes for blocking too.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like if you start getting a whole bunch of birds that are flying over, just like we were talking about with the Huns, you shoot a rooster here, you follow that bird until it hits the ground, and you keep your gun barrel on that damn thing until you're sure it's out of the fight.
Yeah.
Once that thing's laying there, doing the death flop or its tits up or whatever the case may be, now your eyes are back up and you're starting to search for more birds to add to the pile. But until you follow that bird to the ground, you're sure that bird's dead. Because a lot of times you might think they're dead in the air and they hit the ground and all of a sudden they pop back up, shoot that bird again on the ground. Now you can reload. Don't even crack open your gun until you're sure that bird's done.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
Fellas, we covered a lot of ground here. And there's we could keep on pounding this topic for another 2 hours and we wouldn't get it all covered. But let's do closing thoughts. George, is there anything that you wanted to add? Because you've been, there's a Maggie. Oh, there's a Maggie. She wants
got right in on the mic.
Yeah, she did. George, is there anything that you want to add before we close up shop?
Not really. No, nothing that's going to add anything to it. We've been covering a lot of ground here, and it's hunting. From what I've learned over the last 7 years, it's hunting, and you're hunting ground that looks fantastic. Someday it has no birds, and other days it has birds. Mm-hmm. You just keep consistent and change as you go. Read the dog, read the keys and the objectives you're looking for, and you may not get anything one day, and another day you're going to go out and you're going to put 200 birds out of a spot. It's it's fun. You got to keep it that way. You got to keep it fun.
Right. Tim,
don't get frustrated on hold on. There we go. Don't get frustrated on it too if these birds are just pouring out on you. I mean, there's gonna be some that sit. Early season, late season, there's gonna be birds that sit. So don't just get frustrated and pissed off that when you see all them birds lift out of there, it's not the end of the world. There's gonna be more birds there.
Absolutely. Wes?
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, Wes. Here. One thing that I want to add that I thought of earlier in this podcast is I've learned you have to go easy on your dogs when you're hunting pheasants, because it's not like hunting sharptails or huns or another bird, a quail, something that's going to hold for you. These guys are assholes to your dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think your dog is going to hunt these by the Queen's rules, you're sadly mistaken. I mean, does it happen? Absolutely. Absolutely. But half the time, the dog is either bird drunk or just confused, or the pheasant just isn't cooperating. And your dog's much better at finding that bird than you are.
That's and that's another thing too. Like I've noticed when you were down here, Tyler, with Rusty, that dog, he's that old dog that knows exactly what he needs to do for them damn things. And my old dog Gus was the exact same way. Like he knew exactly when, like you said, when he goes out of the truck and he looks at a piece of cover, he knows exactly what he's got to do to make sure that Dad shoots birds. And that's the other thing. Like I know that I get hard on my dogs a little bit when they're not doing what we all want. We all do.
Yep.
But like George said, it's not the end of the world if that dog doesn't hold that point till you release it. I'm going to tell you right now, 100 out of 100 times, I'm going to shoot that pheasant. 100 out of 100 times.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah,
I don't care if that bird's bumped. I don't. I just
no. There's like,
especially when it comes to pheasants.
Yeah,
there's no rules
with sharptails and huns. It can be a very gentlemanly hunt.
Yeah.
Pheasants, fuck those things. I'm out there to put them in the bag. Put them on ground any way I can.
I'm glad pheasants are at the end of the season. So when your dogs pick up all these bad habits, you're not trying to correct them over the other. At least we can have a good acting dog, through September and half of October.
Yeah.
Well, you just wait, George, because you haven't experienced it yet. Tim, you haven't experienced it yet. But try taking your dogs from pheasants to Mearns quail.
Yeah.
Like dogs are like, oh, this is so nice. Like, I don't have to do it. Oh, they're over there. I'll just stand here like a perfect little angel. I won't move. I'm not going to do nothing.
And if it's really dry like it's this year, they're within 5 foot of them.
Right.
That's how close they had to be to smell them.
But with all these dogs, they have a brain. They have a working brain. Some dogs more than others, certainly. But they have all this experience to draw on. If that dog's standing, and I've seen it with the little female CJ here at my feet. I've seen it with Rusty. I've seen it with Bo. I've even seen it with Jesse. If they're intent, staring at a piece of cover, there's a bird there.
Yep.
100% of the time. Yep. Like kick. Like I've been on my hands and knees digging in there. I've trapped them underneath my foot. I've kicked a hole in the snow and seen a tail feather sticking out.
You picked one up?
I picked one up.
Yep.
I mean, like all that stuff can happen. If those dogs are moving slowly, they're on birds. They understand what's going on. Like they might hear them. They might be able to smell them. Sometimes they might be able to see them. And if they start kind of creeping a little bit, just follow them. Don't whoa them. Nothing else. With pheasants specifically, with sharptails, huns, if they're creeping, stop them until you can get a good walk around in front of them.
Right.
With pheasants, there's absolutely zero rules about that. I'm going to give my dog its head. I'm going to follow that dog, and we're gonna put that bird in the bag.
Yep, 100%.
Because your dog's going to know when that bird is holding.
Yep.
If your dog is moving, 99.9% of the time that bird's moving.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to keep up with him.
Yep. For sure. All right, fellas. Well, we covered a lot of ground there. Another 2-hour-long podcast that we've been. That's about how long that the partridge and sharptail one went.
One thing on my finishing. I'm going to kind of touch on what Tim was saying with the birds. If they're going out, don't get upset about it. Like we've said in a lot of the podcasts that we've been talking about with pheasants, hey, there's going to be a certain percentage of them that get up and they're out of your life. Quit worrying about them.
Yep.
Then there's going to be a certain percentage of those birds left in that cover that are marginal birds that might hold, might not hold. You're going to get a few of them, and then there's going to be the rest that are going to hold and work for your dog.
It's the ones that are going to hold forever, and the ones that are those marginal ones that, if with good dog work, you're going to get a chance at them.
So when that big group gets up and leaves,
out of your life.
Birds are out of your life. Don't worry about them. Once you see them go, watch where they go. Maybe go on them later after that spot.
Yeah,
those are the ones you want to breed anyway, because they're the ones that get away.
Because they're good birds. They're wild birds.
See, I want the ones that are going to sit forever. Those are
I want
those
the dumbest. I want
the
dumbest ones. If they all cackled, it'd be great.
I want those ones that are nice and close, so mosquito choke really comes in handy.
Yeah, that's right. That's 100%.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, hopefully you guys got something out of this podcast. It's like we said, it's not even close to a complete.
No.
Everything that we know, there's just too much. There's a lot of really good information in here. Hopefully you guys glean something from it. We will be at Pheasant Fest here in just a couple of weeks, and we are happy to answer questions when we're in our booth. Come by the Onyx booth. I'll be there. Come and heckle us on stages, all that kind of fun stuff. Just keep it nice, because Tim gets mean sometimes and he'll punch you. Not really.
We just sick Wes and George on you.
That's right. That's right.
We're gonna be in the booth doing our job. We're not gonna be out. We're not gonna be out walking.
We're gonna be holding down the fort.
We're gonna be sitting there making.
We're none of these important guys that need to go talk on the stage.
Some of us need to keep our sponsors happy.
Yeah.
But we will be down there Friday night at 9:00. The Onyx Reign of the Quail party. It's going to be a really good time.
You have to go to that. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim doesn't drink a whole lot, but even he drinks at this thing.
I'm a Leinenkugels fan. So
me too.
Wes only drinks once a quarter, and that's the start of the new quarter. So he'll likely be on one that night.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be on one, but I'll have a couple.
We're gonna try to get George a White Russian, because that's the only thing he drinks. He only has one drink a year, and he didn't have any up here at camp this year, so he can have one. That's it. He didn't. So, but we'll be down there. We'll be listening to music. If you see me on the dance floor, that means somebody needs to take me home.
Somebody's gotten prime. Somebody primed the pump.
You'll hear a different wing beat.
Just remember, there ain't going to be a bird around that'll flush, because they hold still.
They're locked down. It's been proven.
The next day on
George, that was good.
The next day on national news, earthquake registered in Kansas City. But yeah, it's going to be a really good time. It's going to be great to see everybody and chat with everybody. And in the meantime, we have some more podcasts coming up here before we go. We're going to try to get Brandon on, give us the state of Boss. We have a couple other ones that we have kind of in the works. But until then, we'll do another plus size models podcast while we're down there. It's going to be a ton of fun. And then right after that, it's turkey season. So we actually get to quit talking about this shit and go out and do some stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm biting at the bit.
Public service announcement. All you, any of the Patreon members of the Prairie Tales, go onto the Patreon site and shoot me your name, your address. We're going to get some stickers out there to you folks. We just need your address. We'll throw some in the mail.
There you go.
We finally got them. Let's get them in the mail before Pheasant Fest, and so be it.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Just remember, tomorrow morning, opening day of the Bassmaster Elite Series starts tomorrow. They're on St. John's River.
3 people care about that listen to this podcast, and Wes is all 3.
Green carp.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. It tastes better than friggin' walleye.
I don't even know. I don't understand how you let that blasphemy even be talked about.
I've caught a million of them damn long, narrow, tubed, toothy carp.
Jesus.
You don't lip them walleye, do you?
I don't.
I don't
shake them off. Get that damn thing off my hook.
Go down there and eat your gar, you hillbilly.
But 2 sons of bitches.
All right, everybody. We will talk to you guys soon. You guys stick around, and we'll chat a little bit off mic.
Sounds good.